Welcome to BBC Newsline. Some of the relatives of those killed on Bloody Sunday say their fight for justice will continue, and the issue they are now focused on is perjury by soldiers. Yesterday, a former paratrooper was found not guilty of 7 charges, including 2 of murder. He is the only soldier to ever be put on trial over the deaths of 13 innocent and unarmed people in Derry in 1972. Today, the Public Prosecution Service has confirmed it is looking again at a decision last year not to pursue 15 veterans for lying under oath. Let's go live to the Bogside now, and our political editor, Enda McClafferty, standing by for us. It seems that the fallout from yesterday's verdict is still taking shape, Enda.
That's right, Declan, because right now here in the Bogside, a vigil is taking place at Free Derry Corner. There are several hundred people have gathered there, some of them carrying black flags to show solidarity with the Bloody Sunday families, because, as you say, they are continuing their fight for justice, albeit now pursuing soldiers who they've accused of perjury. And of course, we'll wait to see where that ultimately ends up. But as our Northwest correspondent Kieran Turish now reports, families are determined that somebody somewhere is going to be held accountable for what happened here on these streets some 53 years ago.
While the headlines today are dominated by the verdict in the Soldier F case, the question now is what happens next. Those who support the military believe there should be an end to such prosecutions, while the families insist their campaign will continue. One woman whose father was shot and wounded on Bloody Sunday believes soldiers should face prosecution if they told lies during the judicial process.
The judge said that the soldiers had perjured themselves, so we would hope now the PPS would charge them with perjury.
A family lawyer believes the case for the prosecution of soldiers for perjury is overwhelming due to statements they've already made.
The evidence is there. It cannot degenerate over time. It cannot devalue over time, and there is no excuse at all to further procrastinate in the issuing of a direction to prosecute in this matter, and it has to happen now.
Some unionists insist that the Soldier F case amounted to a show trial. Others believe that members of the military have been singled out for special treatment.
Nothing can excuse the killing and the maiming of innocent people. But if you're going to prosecute people for actions against the innocents, then you have to look on both sides of the argument, on both sides of the debate.
One man who lost his father on Bloody Sunday says all legal avenues are being explored.
If people told lies during any of those 2 inquiries, they should be made amenable to the law.
The Public Prosecution Service says that last year it decided not to prosecute 16 people, 15 of whom were soldiers, over allegations that they provided false evidence to the Bloody Sunday inquiry. Those decisions are currently being reviewed. A senior PPS lawyer is involved in that process and had no connection with the original decisions. Kieran Turish, BBC Newsline, Derry.
Enda still with us. Enda, what do you think are the chances of former soldiers facing fresh charges for perjury?
Well, there's no doubt about it. The lawyers for the families are pretty bullish in terms of the chances that they think that somebody will ultimately be prosecuted for perjury. And you've got a real sense among some of these gathered in the vigil tonight that there is a determined to see this through. They too feel as if there's a pretty strong case to be made here. But others out there take a different view, and they feel that because the PPS has already examined the perjury issue involving 16 individuals, 15 of them soldiers, they would be very surprised if the PPS returns and reverses, in a sense, that particular decision. But we'll wait and see what the outcome is on that front.
And what about the wider implications, Enda, for future prosecutions against veterans?
Well, there's 2 things to say about that, Declan. Number one, of course, the verdict yesterday will energise the veterans' lobby, not least in Westminster, as they will quote the Soldier F case now in their efforts to try and amend the current legacy legislation going through Parliament, perhaps to try and give greater protection to soldiers going forward. The second thing to say, of course, is that case relied very much on statements which turned out to be unreliable. But where there's forensic evidence, for instance, in relation to cases, just regardless of the passage of time, then there is that avenue for future prosecutions. That point was made last night by Sir Declan Morgan, of course, who's the Chief Commissioner in the legacy body here in Northern Ireland. His body is currently looking at 102 cases involving 180 or so deaths. The vast majority of those are looking for justice. They're looking for information about what happened to their loved ones. And this was the pretty stern message Sir Declan had last night for anybody that might block that pathway to finding the truth.
If it turns out that the state in any way or anyone else stands in our way, we will call it out for what it is, and we are not there to assist the government in terms of anything that it may want to achieve. We are there committed to the interests of victims, survivors and their families. And if that means taking on the government in appropriate ways, that's what we'll do.
So we'll watch with interest to see how that actually works in practice, because the new Legacy Commission is really expected to come into force by the end of next year.
And we can see that crowd gathering behind you there in the Bogside tonight. Thank you very much, Enda McClafferty. Just a few hundred metres from where Enda was speaking to us from there is the entrance to Glenfadda Park. That is where this photo was taken during the chaos of Bloody Sunday. And among this crowd taking cover was a young priest. Now, he would go on to play a significant role in our peace process. Dennis Bradley co-authored the Eames Bradley report, which considered ways of dealing with legacy issues. He's since left the priesthood, but when I met him in Glenfadda Park, the memories of Bloody Sunday were still vivid, and we discussed what happens next.
Well, we know for sure this is where Soldier F and the other soldiers he was with entered Glenfadda Park.
Well, every time I actually come back to this place, which is reasonably often, the memories definitely well up. But before I talk about memories, I just want to say I feel very sore for the two families. Because I know both families. And they've been very dignified. But I never fully agreed with going into court, because there's a reason for that. I don't think that legacy can be dealt with by the criminal justice system. In some ways, it's very personal for me, because I was part of, a team of about 8 priests who happened to be on the ground on that particular day. My memory mostly is about standing at that wall.
This wall?
Those steps weren't there at the time. It was that gable wall. Some people called me over, and I was at the very edge of this. If you come over here, you can just look over. And there were soldiers standing all over the place firing guns.
You cannot come to the Bogside but see signs of Bloody Sunday everywhere. I've got one final question for you, which is, no one denies that Bloody Sunday shaped this city, its character. What happens now?
Victims are many and they're diverse with many needs. And I think that we need to construct ways of actually incorporating the widest possible response to victims. But we also must remember this, and this is sometimes forgotten. Society also has a right in this. The society has the right to move on, to find new ways, to find new freedoms, to leave the past behind, to deal with it as responsibly and as gently and as kindly as possible, but also then to move on. Because if you cannot, you must let the dead die, and you must allow the new generations to be free of the hurts and the pains of the past. They will have their own pains and their own hurt and their own responsibility to deal with.
Dennis Bradley speaking to me in the Bogside.